Okay, guys, this is going to be my review of Godfather Part 3. Just when you think I'm out, they pull me back in. As a Godfather film, it's not great. As a film, it's good. Um, but you know what I think it was? It was this film, the best parts of this film, you couldn't really credit this film. Because the best parts of this film was not necessarily the story, it was diving into the characters that part one and part two laid heavily and gave their development. I cared for the Kay and Michael relationship. I cared for the Connie and Michael relationship. And I cared about Michael the character and him, wanting to retire and leave this group. And that was just the truth of it. Is that the best parts were the foundations built on the first two. The story about, the church and incest, I was like, that, I don't know. It's not to that story level of the other two, right? Where you talk about, them getting, it just felt a lot smaller scale. You know what I mean? When you think of the first one, you think of, the whole family being hunted one by one, and then the father gets shot, and then they want to get into the casino business, and then Michael takes over and wants to kill all the, mafia bosses, and then part two diving into Vito's past, and meanwhile, Michael's getting assassinated, and someone's a traitor, but here you just feel Michael wants to get out, and then there's some things with the church and corruption there, and like in true to Godfather form, Michael's still being hunted, but that never felt fresh and new and dangerous because these other films already established that. And the new characters I didn't care for. Vincent was not a bad character. Being taking over at the end for Michael. The whole film I felt like they were setting up that Vincent was gonna. I don't know who Vincent descended from. I'm assuming Sonny's kid. I don't remember. I don't remember if Sonny had a kid. It's funny. I feel like they made it clear at the beginning, but I don't know about that. But yeah, I just think it felt everything story-wise we've seen before in these other Godfather films and executed better. And you know what it missed? It missed the great characters. You know what I mean? Because yes, it had Michael, and yes, it had Kay, and yes, it had Connie, the three remaining of the original films. But Connie was always a side character, and Kay was always there to truly develop Michael. And Kay and Michael relationship was great in this film. But they're missing Tom. They're missing, what's his face, Fredo, and they're missing Sonny, and they're missing Vito. Because yes, Vito died at the end of Godfather, but he was great as Robert, De Niro in part two for flashback sequences. And they were missing these great, because they're not just performances. And I think Vito Corleone is the best testament to that. They're not, these characters are not just great because of the performances, they're great because they're great characters. You know why I can tell that? Because I was just as invested as, Marlon Brando's interpretation as Vito, as Robert's, and I think that's some of the great stuff. It's the characters, not the performances. And they both got, Oscar nominations for the same character. Only done other, that, the only time, and I think they both won, right? Right? No, wait. I don't know, but remember, I think the only other time that ever happened was with Joker. I know Joker both won, and I know Marlon Brando won. I just don't remember if Robert De Niro won. So I don't know about that, but it was just they were missing the great characters as well. Now I don't know why Tom wasn't there. Maybe there was like a throwaway line, "Oh, he died" or something like that. Tom was cool, and you got the problem was it just felt for it just felt it was a ooh, let's return to this franchise decision than oh, I have a story to tell decision. Because with part two, it felt natural, It felt natural to see what would happen when Michael takes over for, as the head of the Corleones. And it felt natural to kind of see what happened. How did Vito and the Corleones become so powerful? That felt natural, as a natural, interesting story to tell. But this kind of felt like, oh, let's dive back into the same sandbox. What story should we tell? Whereas it felt natural to get a sequel, not necessarily let's make another Godfather film. Oh, what should we do it about? And Mary, infamous for bad acting. I mean, Francis Ford Coppola just wanted to throw his daughter in there, and it wasn't great. And the death scene will go as infamy as just one of the worst death sequences. It was like, Dad, like, Dad, fall down, and I don't know. It was like, because it's just like, Dad, and then Dad, and in like the first 30 minutes were all one scene, all like the dinner party scene. So that was whatever. So, but I enjoyed the film. You know what I mean? It was a good film. It just, as a Godfather film, as one of the staples for um, one of the most, what's it called? Culturally important and influential. That was the word. Influential films of all time. I say films because the first two. So now the question is, does it make the top 10 trilogies of all time? To that, and the funny thing is, I just did a video of that, a couple months ago. But I have to update it because it really does. Because I think the 10th spot was like the X-Men trilogy. But like X-Men Last Stand was not great. It was probably both. I contend both. I just think, okay, so it just really you know what, to me, all Godfather had to be was a good solid film for the Godfather films to be in my top 10 favorite trilogies of all time. And I tell you that because the first two carry it up so much because it's so great. Does it get top 5? Maybe not, because like when you think of trilogies that have 3 great films, Godfather is not one of them. You know what I mean? When you think of original Star Wars films, when you think of Indiana Jones, when you think of Lord of the Rings and Toy Story and stuff like that, then you get into like, well, these. Now, does it beat, let's say, Pirates of the Caribbean or Back to the Future or stuff like that? Maybe. Back to the Future is interesting because Back to the Future I really liked. 1 was great. Back to the Future 1 was bananas. I loved. Then you get into Back to the Future 2. I really enjoyed it. At first I was like, okay, this is better than the first one. But then I thought about it, some logic problems. Okay, maybe not as great. Then part 3, I enjoyed, but I felt it was kind of unnecessary a little bit. It felt like they just want, like it was like, I don't know. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, but, true, like similar to Godfather Part 3, it wasn't a little bit of a step down. A little bit. But yeah, that's still a great trilogy. So, Godfather trilogy probably would beat the Back to the Future trilogy. Pirates of the Caribbean. I really love the first one. I think the second's good. And you know what this is, makes me a huge unpopular opinion. I love the second one. It's a huge unpopular opinion. But I love it. I don't find this idea of, oh, it's too complex, oh, it's too confusing. You know what I think it was? This one just took itself so seriously, and I liked it. Where it was a departure from the franchise because it took itself too seriously. But what I loved about it was a true Pirates war film. And that was not what the first Pirates were on. It was, kind of a action, adventure comedy type thing. But this felt like a true Pirates war film. So, but will Godfather trilogy beat it? I don't know. Probably not. But that's because I think it comes down to different things. But I love this film. What did I say? I think it was good. I think it was enjoyable. It was enjoyable because I loved the characters. I didn't really care for the story, but when it was diving into Michael wanting to, you know, Michael wanting to get out, and Michael wanting to retire, and Michael wanted to end things, and Michael wanting to mend things with Kay. That was when the film was at its high. When they were really diving into these characters that you've grown through these other films. But there's only 3 of them. And that's when it struggled, because it was like you only cared for those 3 characters because Vincent was cool and all, but I feel like Vincent was a missed potential because, like I said, I thought they were gonna make Vincent be a traitor. I mean, I guess because it would have felt too in line with Fredo betraying Michael, which still I think is my favorite scene of the Godfather films, is when Michael at the party goes up to Fredo and grabs his face and says, "Fredo, I know it was you. I know it was you." That scene probably is my favorite scene of the whole Godfather franchise. So, how does it rank? You probably guessed it. Godfather 3 is last, then Godfather 2. But, like, which one's better, 1 or 2? You could go back and forth. But for my money, go for 2. So yeah. I really enjoyed this film. Really thought it was really splendid. Really enjoyed it. So anyways, yada yada yada. Stay tuned for videos coming at you.